Greetings, horror, sci-fi, and werewolf fans. Drew here from Horror, Sci-Fi, and Beyond, and I'm hoping you're having a great second week of October. Today, I got a special guest, Mr. Jackson Harper.
Woo! Howdy, y'all.
How's it going, man?
It's all right. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. And we're
Good.
actually here today to discuss three different and unique werewolf movies that will make you howl at the moon. Yeah, sorry for the pun there. The reason why you wanted to do werewolf movies is, as I understand it, werewolves are your favorite movie monster.
Oh, yes, by far. I
Yeah,
love werewolves.
yeah. What about werewolves do you like?
Um, I mean, we'll get into this as we go along, but I just like the idea of a human being cursed to change into an animal, and
Hmm.
it's beyond their control. And it happens most of the time. They're just a regular person because like a vampire is once they become a vampire, they're always a vampire. But a
Yeah,
werewolf is just a regular person walking around most of the time. And then once every full moon, they have to deal with the fact that they're a vicious, you know, man eating creature.
yeah. Well, and at least with the vampire,
So,
you can like control the monster inside of you a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, like you can choose your victims. Like when
Uh
you're
huh.
ravaging werewolf, like whatever food is nearby, yeah, you're gonna go towards it.
But yeah, werewolf, like the person goes away when they become a werewolf,
Oh, absolutely.
and all that's left is a vicious animal.
Yeah.
So
Well, apparently in Twilight, when they turn into a werewolf, their clothes ripped off, and then like when they turn back into human, like their clothes.
they had their genes back.
I'm like, what? Like you're supposed to be
Yeah.
butt ass naked.
Oh goodness. Twilight.
Yeah, those movies are terrible.
I never saw all of them. I think I saw like the first two. I think I saw the first one just regular, and then I saw the second one with the riff tracks on,
Oh,
which
really?
makes
They
it
did a
way
riff track
better.
for that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, the three werewolf movies that we're gonna review today will be An American Werewolf in London, Ginger Snaps, or as I like to call it, Ginger Oh Snap, and Cursed, which was kind of directed by Wes Craven, kind of not, but we'll get
Oh
into
boy.
that mess.
Yeah.
But I like, and you actually suggested all three of these movies. Like I had no power in this, and I like how these three
Well, I
movies.
think you wanted to do all the 1981 werewolf movies, and I was like, let's mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, maybe we can do that some other time. That may be kind of cool.
Yeah. I've only seen two of them. I've never seen Wolfen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've seen The Howling a long time ago, and then of course I've
Yeah,
seen American Werewolf. But yeah.
yeah, and I like how all three of these are different because American Werewolf, that's the classic one.
Uh huh.
Many consider that to be the best werewolf movie of all time. And then Ginger Snaps is kind of it's a good movie. It's an interesting movie. It's a very weird movie.
Yeah.
And then we got Cursed, which had a lot of issues going on, but it's a party movie. It's a movie that you throw on in the background at a Halloween party, like
Sure.
like the Scooby Doo movies, the live action ones, like
Scooby Doo.
But well, further ado, let's get started.
Okay.
Let's do the first movie, American Werewolf in London, and here is the plot summary according to IMDb. Two American college students on a walking tour of Britain are attacked by a werewolf that none of the locals will admit exists. Now, before we get too much into the deep dive, how did you find out about this movie?
Oh, that's one that's always been kind of on my radar because when I was a kid, I would go through like movie books and stuff like that and trying to figure out like what were the great movies, and that was one that was always mentioned in the horror movie sections of those books as being like uh, um, groundbreaking in the werewolf like transformation special effects and being very funny. And I don't remember when I first saw it. I was probably in college, because I don't think my local video store in high school had a copy. So it was probably college when I first saw it. But yeah, that's one I always kind of knew about even before I saw it.
How I found out about this movie was kind of, and it all goes back to the Universal Monsters. Um,
Hmm.
I just heard just while I'm watching The Wolfman and watching like the making of or listen to the commentary, this movie
Yeah.
got brought up. And
Hmm.
on the making of documentary, John Landis is actually the narrator of that documentary.
Oh, that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah. And he's the director of this movie. And he also did Blues
Yeah.
Brothers and then Animal House.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
did a lot of comedies and a few horrors. And then there was that unfortunate incident with the Twilight Zone movie. Oof.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
Let's get into the deep dive of this movie.
Okay.
Now, that this is gonna be a great movie when the movie opens up with Blue Moon.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah, this movie has a really good soundtrack. I mean, they don't use a ton of songs, but the
Mm.
songs they do use are just absolutely spot on.
Yeah, and
So,
it's all songs with the word moon in it.
yeah.
Blue Moon, Moon Dance, and Bad Moon Rising.
Yeah. And I don't know, this movie it starts really weird because it just goes on for a while with just shots of the English countryside
Mm.
with Blue Moon playing before it goes on for like a minute and a half or
Yeah.
something without even introducing the characters. So
Mm.
I thought that's a choice. Sort
Yeah.
of reminded me of the opening of No Country for Old Men, where it's just
Oh,
showing like the desert, just
yeah.
shots of the desert for a little bit.
I mean, it's just building up like
So,
atmosphere. And that's the thing about this movie was that's why John Landis set it in London because that's where all the
mhm.
Universal horror movies took place, was in Europe.
Yeah,
Besides like the Mummy and like Creature from the Black Lagoon, but still.
yeah, true.
Well, at least it
But
had like a British tie to it. 'Cause I think some of the characters were British.
well, I mean, a lot of those are based on novels by British authors,
Hmm.
So
Right, and all the
Dracula,
actors were British
Frankenstein,
too, or European. Like I knew,
a lot of them, yeah.
yeah, Karloff was British, and then Lugosi
Hmm.
being from Hungary, yeah, Hungary.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that kind of aspect to the movie. Like it was definitely a
Hmm.
loving tribute to those. And I like how when they're at the slaughtered lamb, the mood dies because like they're so jovial at the when they before they walk
Yeah.
in there, and it just dies like
As soon as they walk in,
yeah.
everybody just goes silent and
Oh
just
yeah, it's like
stares at them.
it's like yeah, who are these two American assholes walking into a bar? They start like kind of joking around, and the moon gets lighter, and then Jack, the main character's best friend, because their name is Jack and Dave. He has a
Yeah.
scar on the wall at the pentagram, and the moon just dies again, and they're told to leave. They stay off the road and beware the moon, which really
Yeah.
creates an ominous tone to this film.
Uh-huh.
And then
Yeah, you know something's going on the way these townspeople are reacting to everything that they say and do. Just
yeah,
like there's a secret.
mhm. What I like about it was like you really believe that these two characters are best friends because they're kind of joking around.
They're very good together. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and they're joking around, and they're talking about
Hmm.
like women that that are attractive to them, and then
Yeah.
the part when they're going out into like the countryside, like after they get kicked out of the pub, um, they start singing like an Italian song.
Hmm.
Like they keep do a Santa Luiga,
Yeah.
Santa Luiga, or whatever. Because I think they're gonna meet. I guess because like what they're doing is one of them is trying to find a girl that they knew in high school. I think
Yeah.
they're going all around Europe for like a
Hmm.
few months for the summer or something like that.
Yeah. And they're hoping to meet up with this girl. Well, Jack is hoping to meet up with this girl in Rome.
Yeah.
And David, of course, says, "Why do you like her? She's really boring." And Jack's like, the body's not boring. he's such a horn dog.
Yeah. I mean, it was the 80s. It was the
It
decade of,
was the age of horn dog movies, yes.
and so then Jack is attacked by a werewolf. And it's extremely brutal.
Oh man. It
Yeah.
slices and dices him all up and down.
Yeah, but like you see just enough to get the point, but it's not like
Yeah.
gratuitous, which that's always good in all these older horror movies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we hadn't really gotten to the point in horror cinema where you get, in a mainstream horror movie at least, you get like the crazy gore. That was coming later that decade with the slasher movies and stuff.
Yeah, and like Evil Dead.
I mean, you still had some directors doing it, but that was like way more like fringe indie movies. You know, your what's the guy's name? I can't remember now. Herschel Gordon Lewis, people like that.
Yeah,
they were doing like extreme gore, but that was like very on the fringes. And this is a mainstream movie,
right?
So they hadn't quite gotten to the point of gore that movies would get to.
Yeah, because I think like with like The Exorcist, like there's like a bit of classiness. I mean, it's hard to say, but it wasn't like super exploitative, like what you're saying, like in the Hornball or like.
Well, I mean,
generation or decade of the 80s.
Yeah, well, the Exorcist, that's not so much gory as it's just disturbing.
Right.
I mean, there's some blood and stuff, but that's gross. That movie's gross in a completely different kind of way.
Yeah,
than
but
just
that
straight up blood and guts.
But that would be something that would happen to somebody that would be possessed. Like you look at all the Friday the 13th movies and stuff of a similar ilk. All that was, and they're fun movies. I'm not gonna knock them for that. They're fun movies, but all it was like a bunch of horny teens or college students like together, getting high, drinking, and like having sex. But that's all those movies was like. Part of the language, tits and ass, and gore. That's all those movies were.
Yeah,
essentially. But no, I think this is a little bit more classy, you know.
Yeah, for sure. It's got that old school kind of horror feeling with a little bit more blood and guts just for fun.
Now, I do like the Nazi zombie dream.
That is my favorite part of the movie.
But
I know we're not supposed to do that yet.
But what was the point of it?
I don't know. I really don't know. I can't figure out why there are like skeleton Nazis, you know, invading his home and killing his family in a dream. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because the rest of his dreams are related to his, you know, becoming a werewolf. That one's completely out of nowhere. Part of the movie that makes me laugh the hardest is the button on that scene where he wakes up and the nurse is like, "Here, let me open the window for you." And she goes to open the curtains and another Nazi zombie comes out and starts stabbing her to death.
Now, I don't know if the only explanation is like he's in Europe, maybe.
I guess.
Maybe he's like in Europe, he's close enough to Germany, he's thinking about Nazis.
I guess. There's really no point to it other than it's a good gag.
Yeah, that's probably like the biggest like what the fuck moment in the mainstream.
Yeah. And it's you know, it's John Landis and he's somebody that did horror and comedy. Kind of, you know, separately, but in this movie also together. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, let's just have a crazy scene in this movie that has nothing to do with anything else, but it's gonna be something memorable.
Yeah, I do love this scene. This scene's pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Like, now, this is something that you can never get away with nowadays, but it's David's unabashful, uncensored, flirty moments with the nurse.
Yeah. When I was watching it this most recent time, I was like, this is highly inappropriate.
Yeah, I can't remember like what he said. It's something that like you cannot get away with. And I get like you can't be kind of flirty and like kind of be funny with someone that you're attracted to, but this is like super forward over for
Yeah.
somebody that he doesn't even know.
Yeah, it was very strange watching it with sort of a 2023 glasses on. Um, but yeah, I guess in the 80s, this is the kind of stuff you'd see in movies all the time.
Yeah. Oh, and
So
speaking of
you know,
yeah. Well, and speaking of that, the her apartment tour is very uncomfortable, but in like the funniest way
yeah,
because like they both know what they want. They they
exactly.
they clearly know, and as soon as she says, "I'm gonna take a shower, just hang out here," like David's full moon was rising at that moment in time.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's a
mean?
weird. It's just a weird element to the plot, which I
Mhm.
get why it's in there because it sort of facilitates the plot in a lot of ways. There's no logic to it. Like I don't for a second believe that this nurse is gonna take this random patient home
Mm,
with her just because she thinks
yes.
he's cute. Like I just don't think that happens. It's just very, very. It's in a movie about a guy turning into a werewolf. That's the most unrealistic thing in the movie.
Mhm. Yeah, for
So,
sure.
but I don't know. It's the '80s.
I mean, I wouldn't mind because like Jenny Anchor, whatever her name is she's pretty
Agutter.
yeah.
Oh yeah, she's a classic beauty of British cinema.
Yeah, like she's definitely a foxy lady for sure.
Also, she's in the MCU.
Oh yeah, we discussed that. She was one of the council
Yeah,
members in
she's on the Global Security Council. Yep.
I did remember like the first years of the pandemic. I watched this movie um
Hmm.
like in October, and I got to that sex scene, and my mom was like sleeping, and so usually I skip like nude scenes or sex scenes when she's not in the house or when she's in the house. So just in case he walks in or like overhears it,
Yeah.
it's not awkward. I just let it run because like she's probably just sleeping, and I'm thinking to myself the whole time, if she comes in here, she's probably gonna be asking me, Drew, why are you watching 80s porn? I'm like, I'm not watching 80s porn. It's American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, Jenny Agutter in her heyday was very well known for being pretty fearless when it came to on-screen nudity. She
Hmm.
several movies she just goes full Monty.
Okay, so
So
we're gonna end this video now because I'm gonna look that up. Um, but no, she definitely is a very beautiful lady for sure.
but I will say to this movie's credit, it's a pretty equal opportunity employer when it comes to nudity.
Oh yeah,
Because David's naked in the movie more than she is.
yeah, because she's only naked through that one part, really.
Yeah, but he has like a whole sequence where he's running around, and you definitely get little brief shots of his
The full
Todger.
moon.
Yes,
What did you say?
Todger. It's a British term for that.
Oh, okay. Um, but now, well, like he like straight up shows his ass, like when he's during the transformation.
Oh, tons of that, but there's definitely shots where you get the whole front too.
Oh,
So
really?
they're very brief, and they're very like sort of far away, but they're there. They're there.
without a doubt, this is the greatest werewolf transformation scene. Point blank, period. Show's over. No argument. It's the best. You can't
Yeah,
argue.
I can't think of a better one. I definitely can't.
Yeah,
So
because before it was always like you did like quaff dissolves or
hmm.
you know it wasn't necessarily painful like it is in this movie. The first
Yeah.
like closest rip off like in one of the Hammer movies or whatever.
Hmm.
But this is agonizingly painful
Yeah.
because you got to think like you're going from a human to a giant dog, and you're having a snout like grow out of your face. You're having like paws growl, your hands.
Yeah, your limbs are changing shape, your body's changing shape, everything is stretching in all these crazy directions that it's not meant to stretch. Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's awesome to watch.
Yeah, and the actor David what's his face really sells this scene.
He does, and the thing is like the rest of the movie, I don't think his performance is anything special. He's pretty flat as an
I think he's
actor, and
better
I
than
think that's kind of on purpose because I think he's supposed to be kind of a blank slate.
I think
He's an
fine.
everyman.
I think
He's okay.
I think he's better
in
than
this
Danny.
scene, than who?
I think he's better than the nurse. I think the nurse was just. I think the nurse was just boring.
Oh, I guess they're both kind of bland characters. You don't really get a good sense of the best performance in the movie is Griffin Dunn as Josh.
Oh, absolutely.
He's fantastic. And we can get into him in a little bit, but we're talking about David. But
I love that part with the Mickey Mouse stall.
Yeah, but David, I can't remember his name either. I think it's like Naughton or something like that.
Yeah. Well, he was in that Dr. Pepper commercial when he was like,
"What?
We're a pepper. We're a peppers."
I don't know that.
Yeah, apparently it was like a big deal in the 80s.
Okay, but he's in that scene. You totally believe what he's experiencing.
Yeah, I think the part that freaks me out is when like he's like halfway, like werewolf, and is that part when he's like kind of leaning, or he's like sitting on his butt, and like he's just kind of like looking at himself. That part kind of freaks me out a little bit. Okay, like he's realizing, oh shit, like.
You mean the shot where it's his whole body like on the floor?
Yeah.
And everything is just shaping in this weird wolf-like, slightly human way.
Yeah.
That shot is absolutely haunting.
Yeah, it's not haunting, but it is pretty freaky. And I love the part when like he's starting to grow the snout, and he says, "I'm sorry, I called you a cornball, Jack," or Meatloaf, whatever it was. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. And of course, we should mention, the transformation effects in this movie were done by Rick Baker. The absolute
yeah, like
legend.
Masters. Like he's like
Rick Baker.
Right back as far as horror makeup goes.
Yeah.
Pierce belonged at the top.
Which one?
Jack Pierce. The Universal Horror, Frankenstein, Wolfman.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know the name. It wasn't a name I was familiar with, but yes, I agree.
Yeah, so Jack Pierce, Rick Baker, and then Tom Savini.
Yeah, well, Tom Savini, sure.
Yeah, I almost feel like Tom Savini's like the most realistic, but he was a Vietnam photographer.
Yeah, he knows what injuries and wounds look like.
Yeah, like his stuff is kind of fucked up and disturbing sometimes.
It really is. Makes him great.
Yeah. But real quick, I want to talk about one of my favorite moments, and it's the subway moment when like the dude is exiting the subway and he's standing in the empty like underground like subway station, and like he starts hearing noises, and then like he said, "I hope you realize this isn't the slight bit amusing." But the most thing he can say.
It's so very British.
Yeah, he's not having it. He's not taking no shit from nobody.
Yeah. But then that chase sequence is really great because you don't see the wolf until the end of the sequence. And you just barely kind of see it. But you just see him like running down the hallway, and the camera's kind of in front of him, like tracking him as he's running down the hallway.
Yeah, no one feels like the Friends connection a little bit. We keep talking about that movie on the channel a lot.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it's definitely got that same kind of like. Yep, it's definitely got that same kind of grit and sort of vibe to it. Well, and then you can't get up the stairs, and then he turns around, and you just see that great overhead shot of the wolf just sort of crawling out of the top of the frame towards him. Yeah, it's so good.
I love that. Well, and
then I love.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, you know that you're in London in the 80s where they're like posters for like porno movies everywhere.
Yeah.
Like in the subway station. And then like right next to Wendy's, it's like, hey kids, after you ask your parents to go Wendy's, pick them to go to your local porno theater to see the new Skin Flash. It's fun for the whole family.
Yeah.
Come on, come on, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, but then I love how that scene ends. It cuts to like the close up of the lion, and you're like, a lion, and then you realize it's the next morning and we're at the zoo.
Yeah, and then the nurse like like kind of puts him like straight, like saying like, "Hey, like you're being ridiculous right now."
Mm-hmm.
And then like he tried to get arrested, and he just says like all these obscenities. He says,
Oh
"Hope
yeah,
is gay," um,
yeah,
this person is, a homophobic slur, and he just starts saying
yeah,
like really nasty stuff like shit and like the F bomb, and then like another word I'm not gonna say.
yeah. He definitely drops the C word there.
Yeah, I don't like for it at all. Like I never use that word ever. Which is funny because the first time I actually heard that word was Silence of the Lambs.
Hmm.
Yeah, when he's
Well,
walking past the one dude, and then he says to her,
yes,
"I can smell
I
your."
I
Yeah,
remember the line. Yes.
yeah. I thought he said the word. I thought he said the word, but take out the T or the N, so cut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then like I went back and like put in the subtitles, and I'm like, I wonder what that means. I'm like, oh, hey.
Well, the thing is in the UK, that word does not carry the same weight that
Yeah,
it
I wonder
does
why. I
here.
never
It's just
understood
it,
it.
it's just a cultural thing. I mean, the F word is the same way. Over in the UK, that word's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like it gets said on like mainstream television.
Is there anything else you want to talk about in this movie? Could we get two more minutes?
Well, I want to highlight just we've talked about some of the funny stuff. One of the funniest, well, I want to bring up two of the funniest scenes. One of them is David wakes up naked in the wolf cage at the zoo and has to make it all the way back to Alex's apartment
Mm,
without any clothes on, and
yeah.
he has to like hide in the bushes and trick some kid into like stealing his balloons, and he's
Right.
using the balloons to cover up. And then he steals a lady's coat and he
Mm,
wears that the rest of the way back, and it's just very funny.
yeah.
And then the scene in the porno theater where
Oh,
we haven't really mentioned, he's
yeah.
talking to the undead specter of his friend Jack throughout the movie.
Mm,
Because in this movie, part of werewolf lore is if you get killed by a werewolf, you become sort of an undead specter and have
right.
to sort of wander the earth. Um,
Mm,
which I thought that was a kind of a novel choice, and that gives you a way for Jack to be a part of the story
right.
throughout. But they're in the theater, and Jack starts introducing all of the other people that David has killed up to this point, and they're all like, sort of, some of them are angry at him, and then there's that one lady who's kind of cheerful the
Right.
whole
Wasn't
time.
the scene I had to skip because I was watching the Blu-ray in my living room, so I didn't want
Oh,
like the porno
oh,
that
you
they're
didn't watch it?
watching. Yeah, so
Yeah, okay. Well, they're telling him all these different ways that he can kill himself.
mm,
Like they're just giving him suggestions. It's pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah. And I just like the fact that David like after he turns into the werewolf and the nurse is trying to take him to the hospital or like a mental facility or whatever. Like this dude's is like extra horny because he says like let's do a quickie just real quick.
No, that's part of the werewolf
Yeah,
curse
yeah,
is, a heightened sex drive and sexual appeal,
yeah. We'll
which
talk
we'll
about
get
that.
into that as we get into the next two movies. Yeah.
Let's do favorite part, least favorite part, real quick, and we'll do a rating, and we'll get to the next film.
Okay. Favorite part, like I said earlier, it's the weird Nazi zombie dream and
Right.
the dream within a dream aspect of it. It's very disturbing, but it's also just really funny that
Mm,
it's like a Family Guy joke.
right.
It's just the cutaway, and then we're back into our story.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then, what's your least favorite part?
Um, it's it's the lead performance. Aside from the transformation sequence, it's just a very bland performance for a bland character, and I understand that that's sort of the point because he's supposed to be
Mm,
a blank slate, but whatever. I
yeah,
would rather see a more dynamic actor play that character.
yeah. I gotta say, my favorite part would have to be the adult theater scene. I think that's just funny to me. The whole
Yeah,
aspect. Least favorite part, would just have to be. I just wanted more information about David's family. Like what's his relationship with them? And you get a little bit of it with the dream scene, and then the telephone call. But I wanted a little bit more. Like
yeah,
why do we care about this guy?
yeah.
Kind of
And
thing.
and why is his family seemingly unconcerned with the fact that he was attacked by,
Yeah,
well, what they assume is just, a raving madman out on the moors, but he's been in the hospital and they don't have any sort of contact with him throughout the movie.
yeah. Oh, that's another thing I like about this movie was like the mystery aspect of it. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and what is your rating out of
Oh,
five?
this is like a 4 out of 5 movie for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna go 4.5
Okay.
for this movie because I think it is classic. There's a lot of funny moments. The transformation scene is a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun little gags, like I said. It's just the two leads are just kind of boring, honestly. Like what you said. So,
Yeah, fair enough.
yep. All right. So you ready to move on to Ginger? Oh snap!
Oh yes. I love this movie.
Okay. So the plot summary, according to IMDb for Ginger Snaps, is two deaf assessed sisters, outcast in their suburban neighborhood, must deal with the tragic consequences when one of them is bitten by a deadly werewolf.
So I can't remember exactly when I became aware of this movie. It had to have been sometime it was probably in sort of the mid to late 2000s when I was spending a lot of time on the IMDb message boards, which do not exist anymore for good reason because it was it was a very toxic place. But you get a lot of really good movie recommendations out of it. I think people were just talking about it, and so I gave it a watch, and I was like, "Oh wow, this movie's really cool." And then I also watched the Ginger Snaps 2, which we're not talking about, but is also a really cool movie. Ginger Snaps 3, I couldn't get into, and I never finished it. Anyway, um, but this is one of those that I've been kind of carrying the torch for years and years and years. I've been trying for like 3 years to get them to cover this on the Fear of God. I will succeed one day.
I mean,
I will.
you just see it was old, so
I did. It took 2 years with old,
yeah, I feel like
so I don't
they
know how long
would.
it's gonna.
They I think that I feel like they're going to.
They've got to get around to it at some point. They've
Yeah,
got to.
yeah. Well, they're feminists, and this is like a very feminist, strong movie.
Agreed. Yes, it's actually got a lot that they would have a field day with. Anyway, that's not the point. Um, but yeah, I
Well,
guess I got this through like Netflix or something back
mm,
when they did the discs, and I got the disc in the mail, and I've just been kind of obsessed with it ever since.
yeah. Well, I should mention that this movie uses the werewolf myth as like a metaphor for like a menstruation cycle.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
that
your body's
and
kind of changing. It's kind of weird and a little gross, and it's
that in conjunction with sort of a sexual awakening as well.
yeah.
But the two kind of go hand in hand because it's all about like,
Hmm.
it's coming of age. It's literally coming of age.
Right.
Um, you know, changing from a kid to an adult.
Mm,
So, yeah.
yeah. Now this movie opens very interestingly because you
Hmm.
have these two sisters, Ginger and Bridget, I believe her name.
Bridget, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And by the way, that's Beverly from the It miniseries.
Yeah, Emily Perkins, I think is
Yeah.
the actor's name. Yeah.
All right, yeah, actress. But she's not related to Anthony Perkins in any way. It just so happens to be her last.
No.
Yeah, that'd be
No,
pretty cool.
and this is a Canadian movie, so the actors are, I think, pretty much all Canadian.
Yeah. Oh, even what's your fate, the mom?
She might be American. I think I did see in the credits that there was U.S. casting.
Yeah, what's her
So,
name? I know she's pretty
oh,
famous.
it's Mimi something.
Rogers.
What is it? Mimi Rogers. Yes,
Yeah.
that's an interesting character too. We'll have to talk about her in a little bit.
So basically, this is the movie opens with, well, I like how the movie like had there's like a warmness to this movie and to a lot of like thriller movies like The Sixth Sense or like Misery. Like there's a warmness to it. Like you just want to bundle up in a blanket and watch. Like
Yeah. Well, I mean, it takes place in Canada in the autumn,
yeah,
so it's very, yeah. It's got that kind of like gold and red and brown color palette to it.
yeah.
Plus, it was made in the late '90s, early 2000s, and a lot of movies had that look at the time.
Mm. But I like how like it opens on like a dog that like they got murdered. You don't know
Hmm.
what it is, and then like I can't remember what Bridget did to it. She was like it was something about like a fertilizer or something like that. But this movie's like were very hard to follow for one thing. And
It's sort of crazy. The
yeah,
pacing of it is pretty crazy, and the dialogue. I actually, when I was watching this movie again last night, it had never really occurred to me before, but I bet you everything that this movie was a big influence on Diablo Cody when she was writing Jennifer's Body,
mm,
because the vibe is kind of similar, and just the way that Diablo Cody writes dialogue, I could see echoes of it in
right,
this movie. Just the sort of odd slang that they use and
mm,
stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of hard to follow, but basically you get introduced to these two characters, and then like they keep taking pictures of themselves, like
Yeah.
of like fake suicides, which is for like a school project, which is really weird. Like I'm like, what kind of class is this?
Yeah. Well, of course, the teacher, he's not having any of it.
Yeah.
He is absolutely disgusted by their project.
Hmm.
Of course, the rest of the class thinks it's cool.
Yeah. Well, then like, and this kind of goes into like the sexual awakening kind of side of the movie, where one of the male
Hmm.
students asks, "Can I see the ones with ginger again?"
Yeah.
Yeah, and this kind of sets up that dynamic where like there's certain characters or like men or male people that only
Hmm.
see women as sexual objects, other
Yeah.
and not like around it individual.
Yeah. And it's especially true of teenage boys. I mean, teenage
Mm.
boys are, you know, your
The horny,
hormones are going
the
crazy.
hormones.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, this movie definitely touches on that. And like I said, I think that Jennifer's Body is a good comparison for something that's,
Mm.
a little more recent. Actually, no, Jennifer's Body's kind of old at this point. It's like, what, 2009 or something?
Yeah.
I will go on record as saying I know that movie has been reevaluated in the past few years, and people who didn't like it have kind of come around on it. I always liked Jennifer's Body. I
Okay.
always thought that was a good movie.
Yeah,
So,
that too, but I can also tell that this was like, I mean, of course, it's not like a satire like Scream, but you can definitely tell that like this was like in the vein of like Scream a little bit. There's like a little hint.
yeah, it's that late '90s, early 2000s kind of horror, and of course, this is a much more low budget. Like, this is an indie movie from Canada,
Mm,
um, and so it has a little bit of a. It doesn't have quite the slick sensibility of something like Scream, but it definitely falls in that same camp. And I do think that there's a lot of satire in it
mm,
because it's just so over the top. You can't help but laugh at it,
right.
even when you're taking it seriously. Because I do take it seriously. I think it's really a legitimately good movie. I also think
Yeah.
it's really campy
Well, Scream is like that.
and silly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the first Scream and some of the sequels are like that. Like they're kind of
yeah,
satirical, but they're serious movies.
right, exactly. That I love that kind of horror that
Yeah.
can like go way over the top, and
Mm,
yet it gives you something. It gives you something to hang on to either thematically or emotionally. In this case, I think both.
Yeah. Well, yeah, American Werewolf is like that too. Like it's not straight.
Yeah,
It's not straight comedy.
yeah, but American Werewolf, I don't know that it has quite the thematic kind of core that something like Ginger Snaps does. I think American Werewolf is just it's more going for a classic horror, you know, in the vein of the 1940s Wolfman.
Right.
I don't think it's really has much else on its mind, at least not anything that the original Wolfman didn't.
Right.
Just the internal struggle of coming to grips with the fact that you're turning into a monster.
Right.
But Ginger Snaps takes that and just turns the dial up just a little bit more and gives you all this stuff about like women going through puberty and you know, the bond between sisters being tested when one of them starts to change and the other one is not quite there yet.
Right.
That sort of
I
thing.
feel like Shaun of the Dead is like that. That's more leaning more comedy, but like it's not.
Shaun of the Dead is definitely in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not like a parody, but like it's still like a badass zombie movie. Like it's probably my top 2 favorite zombie movies. Like that and Return of the Dead.
Here's a little bit of trivia for you. So, Catherine Isabel plays Ginger, who in the movie is the older sister by like a year. She's 16. And then Bridget, played by Emily Perkins, is 15. In real life, Emily Perkins is 4 years older than Catherine Isabel.
Right.
Yeah. I always think that's funny when stuff like that happens in movies.
Oh, and I just thought about something, another correlation to it is, you know, how this movie is very much a sexual awakening. There's definitely that aspect in the story of it too. More explicit in the book, but
yeah, well, that's a thicket.
but like even Perkins like talks about that in the documentary for that miniseries, and I'm like, and like I knew, and like and what he was talking about was completely serious, but I laughed and I knew that the infamous scene in the book that he was referring to. I'm like, oh god, yeah. You really made that one obvious, King. And I thought that was interesting, like an interesting correlation how he's been in both movies that kind of deal with it all bit.
I mean, it's a lot of horror movies do, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's interesting how like Ginger and Bridget are late bloomers when it comes to like their menstruation cycle. Like your mom like brings kind of mentions that. And it's not until Ginger is bitten by the werewolf or attacked by the werewolf when like that stuff starts to happen. And all of a sudden, like she grows hair. All of a sudden she grows a tail. And that's probably some of my favorite aspects of this movie, compared to like American Werewolf or like other werewolf movies where it's very much I get attacked by a werewolf, there's some time, and then, you know, transformation thing, and then I attack a bunch of people. This is very much taking his time. Like he's slowly
it's a slow burn transformation. He like just little tiny bits at a time.
It's like the Fly. It's like every time you see Seth like a little bit of him is different. Or The Exorcist, one where it's like he's deeper into the possession.
Yeah. And I saw somebody online refer to Ginger Snaps as kind of a body horror movie, which makes it's a body horror movie. So that's a cool spin on the werewolf myth. Yeah. Because in the other werewolf movies, it's like, oh, the full moon comes, and then one night they just turn into the wolf and they start killing people. No, this movie really takes its time with that whole thing, and like you get the whole sort of subplot where she's growing a tail.
Yeah, that part was disturbing.
It's the most disturbing thing in a movie that has like people getting, you know, their throats ripped out and everything. The most disturbing is watching this teenage girl slowly grow a tail, and it gets longer and longer.
Like, and as it's all going on, like she's starting to dress differently. She's acting differently. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And but also the other thing I like, and I touched on this a little bit earlier, is like this bond between sisters because Ginger and Bridget are so close.
Mm.
Um, they do everything together. They're obsessed with all the same stuff. They have not really similar personalities. They express themselves in very different ways, but they're kind of a unit.
Mm.
And then when this happens to Ginger, she starts to change and Bridget starts feeling very left out. So it's like, yeah, it's the metaphor of the one sister starts becoming a woman and the bond between them starts to break down,
Right.
you know. And then you get all this jealousy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's turning saints into the sea. I mean, what else do you want to talk about this movie? Like, that's pretty much
I want to talk about Mimi Rogers as the mom.
okay. Yeah, maybe
It's
you want
such
to.
a weird, fascinating character because at first you feel like, oh, it's just the clueless mom from
Mm.
90s movies, you know. By the end of the movie, you come to realize she knows what's going on. You know, she slowly figures out that something's going on, and then she figures out exactly what's going on.
Mm.
And you don't expect her to react the way that she does. Because, you know, she finds the body that they've buried in the
Mm.
shed of this classmate
Yeah, they
that
find bodies,
honestly,
bodies.
yeah, they didn't even kill her on purpose.
Right.
It was kind of, I mean, they were, you know, Ginger was definitely, you know, roughing her up a little bit, but
Mm.
the way she actually died was an accident. And then they had to
Right.
bury her out in the garden. And when the mom finds it, she, you know, you don't know what she's gonna do. And then she's like, tomorrow I can set the house on fire and the three of us girls could just go somewhere else and start over where nobody knows who we are. And you're like, whoa,
Right.
mom kind of crazy too.
So yeah, I feel like this movie. I feel like all three of these movies feel very much of their time in a
Oh,
weird.
for sure.
Yeah, because like American Werewolf was like early '80s, so it almost
Yeah.
like it feels like that cross between like it feels like you can definitely see the transition between like '70s horror to '80s horror.
Hmm.
That movie. This is definitely late '90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, but it feels more 90s than 2000s.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
That felt like something from like an Alice in Chains musical. At the
Yeah.
sequence.
And I think part of this is because it's from Canada,
Mm.
and I feel like the sort of popular trends in the US get to them maybe a few years later.
Yeah. Yeah, this is
I mean,
definitely
there's a famous joke in How I Met Your Mother where Robin says the '80s didn't come to Canada until 1994 or something like
my birth
that.
year.
So, so
That's actually
yeah,
more funnier.
but yeah, it came out in 2000, but it
Mm.
feels like it could have come out in 1995.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. Yeah, and this, like I said, going back to the Alex and James scene, this movie's very much of like that grunge generation.
it's got that. I mean, even down to the way it's shot, it
Mm.
looks like a music video from that time.
Yeah,
The
like
way they move the
Sci-Fi.
camera, and yeah,
Yeah, like well, even at the intro when it's like like I said, it's like that warm kind of suburban, like warm and fuzzy feeling. Like it's kind of felt like now that I think about it, the Black Hole Sun video.
okay,
Yeah, and that's a weird
I
video.
can see that a little bit.
Well, because like Black Hole Sun, that's another like kind of warm, cozy, like suburban street, but there's something like kind of dark and sinister going on. And
Yeah,
that's a weird video. I don't know what's up with that video.
it, it is really weird.
Yeah, I mean, I do love that video though too, but still. And even like the school scenes, I smell like Teen Spirit video. It's just like because everything's like kind of
Yeah, I
dirty
could
and
see that.
grungy and
Yeah, there's kind of a little
look
haze
gothic.
over everything.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's like yeah, this movie's like definitely like modern gothic in a way, like The Crow
Hmm.
for sure. Like
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, The Crow's a good comparison.
yeah, well, I know Ernie Hudson, who was played the police officer in The Crow, basically said in the making of that this is like one of the first movies of this decade where like it's still like a music video, like something you would see on MTV.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, is there anything else you want to say about Ginger? Oh, snap!
Trying to think. I don't guess so. No.
Okay.
Oh, I wanted another sort of trope of '90s horror is like the drug dealer who's kind of heroic, like you see it
Oh
in The
yeah, for sure.
Faculty as well, like Josh Hartnett's character in The Faculty.
I haven't seen the faculty.
Oh well, minor spoiler: the drug that he sells turns out to be the only way that they can tell who the aliens are versus
Okay.
the humans.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's on
it's
my list.
Faculty's a cool movie. It's like a Gen X version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's on my list this year of movies to watch in October.
yeah, it's a
So
cool movie. I
yeah,
enjoyed
so
it.
I don't know if have already watched it or not by the time this comes out, but
Okay,
yeah, because we're filming this like a couple months beforehand.
yeah,
So you want to do favorite part, least favorite part, and then rating, and then we can get to cursed.
sure.
Okay, so do you mind if I go first? And I'll let you go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. My favorite part is when Ginger compares to killing to sexual pleasure. I think that actress completely owned that scene. Like
Hmm.
he basically stole that whole scene. And like going back to the whole metaphor about the whole sexual awakening thing, that was just like that really personified. Or yeah, I think that's the word I'm trying to say. Like
Hmm.
it really told you like this is like what this movie's about. Or the theme
Yeah.
thematically. My least favorite part, I thought the tone in some spots just felt off a little bit because I feel like something that was like Scream, like that felt a little bit more well balanced. This one felt a little kind of not all throughout it, but a little bit off in some.
Yeah.
And by the way, didn't the drug dealer did he remind you a little bit of Christian Slater a little bit?
I could see that, especially like Christian Slater in something like Heather's.
Oh yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I see that on your sister Jen there is turned into a werewolf. What what is
Well,
that?
I like that he keeps saying the word lycanthrope. That's his word that he
Yeah,
likes.
lycanthrope. I'm Christian Slater, and I like lycanthropes. The fancy word for vampire. I mean for werewolves. And
Yeah.
what exactly killed the vampire? Suddenly the old stake to the heart. So that's probably one of my favorite Christian Slater moments in the movie is that line from Interview with the Vampire.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then what's your favorite part? Least favorite part? Jackson Harper.
Favorite part, I mean, I'm gonna pick the two leads in this movie, Emily Perkins and Catherine Isabel. I think they feel so real. I mean, they don't look anything like sisters, but they feel like sisters. You get a sense of their bond and who each one of them kind of is individually. And I just think the performances are really good. And if you ever watch Ginger Snaps 2, um, that one is way more. Catherine Isabel is in it as kind of a ghost,
Hmm.
but it's way focused on Bridget. And Emily Perkins gives an amazing performance in
Ooh, I
that
might check
movie.
it out.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay.
I think I might like it even a little bit more than this one.
And then your least favorite part.
Yeah, I don't really have one. I thoroughly
Yeah.
enjoy this movie. I can't pick a least favorite part. I don't know. I don't like when the dogs get killed.
Okay.
Yeah, so trigger warning for people that are not into scenes of animal cruelty.
Yeah.
There are a lot of dead dogs in this movie.
Yeah. Or you can or you can always go on the website, the dog dies in this one or whatever that website's called when it has like all the trigger warnings for stuff.
Yeah, there are multiple dead dogs in this movie.
Yeah.
So,
And then rating out of 5.
oh, this is like a 4.5 for me.
Yeah. This is gonna be a 4.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch
Okay.
it again to kind of get all nuances and all that stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
All right, so last movie,
Oh
and
boy.
that is gonna be Cursed. And the plot summary, according to IMDb, is a werewolf loose in Los Angeles changes the life of three young adults who, after being mauled by the beast, learns that they must kill it in order to avoid becoming werewolves themselves. And how did you find out about this movie? Or what's your relationship with this movie?
Okay, so I have a fun little personal story before we get into the movie itself. So this movie came out when I was in college, and I used to write movie reviews for the college paper. And I picked this one to write about because I was kind of excited when it was coming out, because it's like, oh, it's the people that made Scream and they're making a werewolf movie. Cool. I'm into that. And then the early reviews start coming out and they're not good. But I still have like a deadline to write this review. And I never went to see it. I blew it off. But you know what I did? I wrote the review anyway. I just like took the sort of general consensus of the movie and synthesized it into my own language and wrote a review for a movie I never saw, which I do not think is ethical journalism. But you know what? I wasn't even getting paid for this, so I don't care.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody read the review anyway. So anyway, but yeah, it's just a movie. It came out when I was in college and I was seeing everything at that point in my life. Yeah.
So do you want to go into the history about this movie?
Yes. Okay. Time to put on your caps for Professor Jackson's History Corner. This movie had a very, very troubled production. And I'm just going to go ahead and lay it all at the feet of the Weinsteins, because you know what? It was put out by Dimension Films, which is a division of Miramax. And Harvey Weinstein, the actual criminal of the family, does not really figure into this story. It's more his brother, Bob. So Bob Weinstein was specifically the head of Dimension Films. So he was the main producer behind like Scream and a lot of those other late 90s horror. So Wes Craven was finishing up pre-production on a movie called Pulse, which I think eventually got made by a different director, although I'm not sure if it's the same Pulse. Anyway, but Bob Weinstein came to him and said, "We want you to do this werewolf movie." Kevin Williamson, who of course wrote Scream 1 and 2, had written this werewolf script in probably like the year 2000, and Bob Weinstein was like, "I want you to come and direct it." Well, Wes Craven wasn't interested because he was working on something else. But Bob Weinstein said, "We'll pay you double your salary if you come and direct this movie for us." So Wes Craven relented, because why not? I'm making double what I would have made on this other movie. So they start making the movie. They hire Rick Baker to do the werewolf effects. They get originally this movie was supposed to have 3 lead characters, which was Jesse Eisenberg, Christina Ricci, and what's his name? Skeet Ulrich. Yeah, Skeet Ulrich. And they were going to play like 3 main characters, and they were all supposed to be strangers who get involved after a werewolf attack that causes a car crash. So they go and shoot pretty much the whole movie. I believe they shot for like 54 days on a 60-day schedule. The only thing they had left to shoot was the climax of the movie. Well, Bob Weinstein comes back, and him and the rest of the studio heads, they didn't like the way the movie was going. They didn't like the ending. So they moved the movie back into development and demanded a page 1 rewrite of the whole script. And this is a script that had already been rewritten a couple of times by people other than Kevin Williamson. Okay. But they scrapped the whole thing, completely rewrote the script, took out the Skeet Ulrich character because he was just like, "I'm done with this, I left." So they changed that to what became the Joshua Jackson character. They made Christina Ricci and Jesse Eisenberg brother and sister, which they were not in the original story. They added a couple other characters. They took some other characters away and basically started the whole process over again. So they went back and shot what's virtually a whole different movie, kind of like what happened with Justice League a few years ago with Joss Whedon.
Right.
There's very little of the original cut of the movie, the unfinished cut, in the movie that exists today. So then after that, they get done with that. Everybody's like, cool, fine, whatever. And then the studio's like, we want some more reshoots. So they bring them back for 20 more days of reshoots. And then they get done with that. And then the studio's like, we need a few more reshoots. They bring them back again for the fourth time for 10 more days of reshoots. And they just keep. And then it was supposed to be an R-rated movie. That was contractually what they were going to deliver. And then the studio gets the R-rated cut, and they're like, no. And by this point, Wes Craven had moved on. He was starting to work on Red Eye, which is also a pretty cool movie.
Right.
It's a way better movie than this one. And then he finds out, oh, the studio's re-editing the movie to give it a PG-13 rating. And he was very angry about that. He was outspoken about how upset he was over that. So yeah, this movie is just the ultimate example of a studio taking something that, who knows, might have been really good and just grinding it down into something that's so cookie cutter and ultimately kind of stupid.
Well, I don't know if you mentioned this, but this was supposed to be like a deconstruction of the werewolf genre, kind of like it was to slashers. And like Bob Weinstein was okay with that, but for some reason he wasn't okay with whatever they were going to do with the werewolf genre. I don't get that. Like that just kind of blew my mind right there.
I don't know.
But do we know how they were going to deconstruct this?
No, there's very little information out there. There's some information about kind of the general mechanics of the plot of the original script, but very little is known. Nobody's really seen, whatever footage was shot before they scrapped it and brought it back and reshot the whole thing.
Yeah, the only thing
I guess a few people have, but yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I could find was like maybe some like behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, they had like behind the scenes, like Entertainment Tonight came and like visited the set and interviewed like Skeet Ulrich and stuff like that. And then of course the other thing about this is, Rick Baker, who the legendary guy that did the werewolf effects in American Werewolf, after they scrapped the original cut, he left the project and they brought on this effects house called K&B, and which I think they've done some really good stuff too. I'm trying to remember. I think that's what's the guy, the Walking Dead guy. I think that's
Greg
his.
Nicotero.
Yeah, I think Greg Nicotero is part of K&B. Yeah. So they came on and they sort of redid a lot of the werewolf effects, and they did them practically. And then when they recut the movie down to PG-13, they replaced a lot of the practical effects with CGI. But they still put Rick Baker's name in the credits.
It makes no sense.
It's stupid Hollywood politics. That's all that I can say about it. It's stupid. It's so stupid.
Yeah. But apparently a lot of it is somewhere. Like the original cut is or the original footage.
Yeah, there have been talks about like work prints that have surfaced on like I think a VHS tape or something like that somebody found, but you can't really find any of that footage.
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully one day we get some remnants of what would.
I doubt it because this movie wasn't a big hit,
Yeah, but like people like Craven and Kevin Williamson, so maybe I think there's enough want and desire for.
I don't know. I think if it was gonna happen, it would have happened already.
Well, they're also gonna think about their different negotiations that gotta go on too.
Yeah,
because you have like the Wes Craven estate, and then stuff with like Kevin Williamson, and then Skeeter Ulrich wasn't even in the final version of the movie.
No, they completely took that character out.
Yeah, so I think you gotta like talk to him about it, or there's just so many things, but yeah, but I'm hoping because I do really want to.
It'd be cool, but the thing is they never actually finished that version of the movie. They never shot the ending.
Yeah,
They
Oh,
shot pretty much everything else, but they never shot the ending of the movie.
yeah, it's kind of a problem.
So
Oh,
so there's no way to fully reconstruct
hmm.
that version. The footage still exists as far as I know,
Hmm.
but it's still missing the ending. So you can't get a full movie out of it.
Yeah,
Not anymore.
that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like everybody's kind of old, like a little bit too old. It's not,
Yeah, yeah. You can't get those people back because they
yeah,
don't look
it's
the
not like
same
the Snyder.
anymore.
Yeah, well, it's not like the Snyder. It's not like the Snyder cut where like the actors kind of look the same that they did when they.
Yeah, yeah, because there's not that many years in between there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because this movie's almost 20 years old by this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Christina Ricci looks vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Jesse Eisenberg kind of looks the same. He doesn't. I mean, he's definitely not as young, but
hmm,
he still he still looks fairly young.
yeah, but let's actually talk about the version of the movie. Um, I
Okay.
love, I do like the opening of the movie where they're bowling for soup playing Little Miss Riding Hood. I thought that was a little, that was
It's
kind of cool.
cute, I guess. Yeah.
I like that. That was kind of cool. Um, and then I do love the horror museum. I think that was the one part that made
That's the best thing, and yeah, that is absolutely a place I would want to go and
yeah,
like
well,
hang out and have drinks and stuff. Yeah.
like I was having a field day watching those scenes because they had like Nosferatu in the background and like
Yeah.
Pinhead and all these other like horror icons. It's kind of
Hmm. Yeah, and then there's like the cool like hall of mirrors and stuff
mm,
like that. I love, yeah, that looks like a really fun place to spend a night in LA.
yeah, and then like Justin Eisenberg is kind of like this nerdy character, but
Hmm.
like it seems like Jesse Eisenberg seems too much like the cool nerd to be like picked on all the time, or seem or like a person that would be picked on all the time.
I guess. I
But not
mean,
like a cool nerd, but like a socially aware, like more like a Steve Jobs kind of thing. Like
yeah, but I think you're putting that on him because he was in like the Social Network and he's been
yeah,
in all this other stuff. But yeah, at the time, I think he sort of specialized in playing these socially awkward misfit type of characters because you see him in this and you see him in something like Roger Dodger or The
mm.
Emperor's Club, two other movies that came out around this same time,
But I
and
couldn't
he
buy
was
that. But
definitely playing that kind of character.
yeah, but I didn't buy that. I felt I kept.
Oh, I do. Maybe because I saw those movies as well, so I
Yeah.
knew the other side of his persona. Whereas, yeah, now I think his characters are nerdy, but yeah,
Mm.
they are a little bit cooler and a little more confident.
Yeah, I just kept seeing him as Mark Zuckerberg. Like he seemed like yeah, he just seemed a little bit. It was kind of hard to picture me as somebody that like would be a bully attractor, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then that's like the whole Teen Wolf thing where like you're just automatically good at sports now, which is kind of
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. That's kind of a fun scene, and of course, that's more. I think Teen Wolf 2 is the one where he's on the wrestling team because Teen Wolf 1 he's on basketball, but
Yeah,
Teen Wolf 2 I think he is on the wrestling team. So that's
yeah. Well, I think
kind of a little callback to that.
I think Teen Wolf 2 had Jason Bateman, right?
It's Jason Bateman. Yeah, yeah.
Um, I mean, there's not a lot I could talk about this movie, Kurt.
There's not much to talk about.
It's a
It's
fun
just kind
movie.
of
It's a party movie. It's a movie you throw in the background. Like it has good enough atmosphere. I feel like, especially with the museum.
yeah.
Uh,
But also, what I learned from reading about its production and stuff like that is, the first time they shot it, they were really putting their heart into it, and that um, they were putting a lot more attention into the actual filmmaking. And
mm,
then when they had to come back and redo everything, it seemed like they just cut a lot of corners and they just kind of slapped this movie together, and it feels like it. There's nothing particularly visually impressive about the movie.
Right.
Um,
I think the only thing that's visually impressive is like the werewolf scene at the end in the museum. I thought that was kind of neat.
yeah, and that's still got some shots of a practical werewolf.
Mm.
Not all of them. There's still a lot of CGI shots in there, but there are a few shots where you can tell that the werewolf is, somebody in a costume and
Yeah.
they're
Well, the werewolf didn't
running
even,
around doing a rampage.
well, the werewolf didn't even look that scary. Like it looked kind of cuddly. Like I want to.
Yeah, it's a big, furry
Yeah, like
creature. Yeah.
I wanted to cuddle up with the with his wolf.
Yeah.
Make it my
So who knows what the Rick Baker werewolf would have looked like?
Oh,
We
it
don't
probably would
know.
have been amazing.
I'm sure.
But
So I don't know. I don't know what to say about Cursed. It's dumb. It's mildly entertaining. It's got a good cast. I mean, I've always been a fan of Joshua Jackson and
yeah,
Christina Ricci and Jesse Eisenberg and
Michael
and then of
Rosenbaum in
course
this movie.
Michael Rosenbaum has a small part. You've got
Yeah,
Scott Baio playing himself weirdly
yeah,
in a plot thread that doesn't go anywhere.
right.
And then the great Judy Greer. I love Judy Greer.
Mm. Oh yeah, who doesn't, man? And does he turn
Yeah.
into a werewolf in this movie?
Yes, she's the main werewolf during the the party scene that goes wrong. She's the one that's going on the rampage there.
Right. Yeah, and I like how like she like flips like after werewolf like she like flips off like she like
Yeah,
the middle finger. I thought that was,
yeah, that's one of those reshoot things.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of stupid, but it's kind of funny
Yeah.
in a weird
The
way.
one gripe that one of the gripes I have against this movie though is that you don't get to see the main characters actually transform.
Oh,
You don't. Like Christina Ricci and Jesse Eisenberg are both in, cursed,
mm,
and you never see them turn into a werewolf. You never see Joshua Jackson turn into the werewolf.
right.
I mean, you get the sense that he was the werewolf at the beginning of the movie that said all of this. I never was clear of whether that was him or whether that was supposed to be Judy Greer.
Right.
The movie doesn't tell you. So, I think you're supposed to be led to believe that it was Judy Greer, but then it turns out it was probably Joshua Jackson. I don't know. It's very messy, and you can see why after hearing the story of its production. But yeah, the climactic scene of this movie takes place just in their kitchen, and you don't get to see any of them turn into a werewolf. It's just like a fight between three humans.
Yeah, it's kind of
and they have like little claws come out, and you got Jesse Eisenberg crawling on the ceiling, and that's it. That's the end of the movie.
I was kind
really, it really is a
of
whiff of an ending.
Yeah, I wasn't really paying attention at this point.
Yeah, because the best scene is the attack at the club,
Mm.
and then there's this whole like 20 minutes left of the movie or something.
Right.
That's not as good. So
yeah, for sure. I like how Jackson Eisenberg is so nerdy in this movie that like he keeps the top button of his polo button. I thought that was pretty funny.
That is a nice little touch, yeah.
Yeah. So you want to do favorite part, least favorite part?
Sure.
Okay, I'll let you go first.
I mean, the best part of the movie is the club, not just the sequence at the end, or towards the end, but just the club in general. Like I said, looks like a cool place. I would want to go hang out there, have some drinks, look at all the horror movie props, walk through the Hall of Mirrors, stuff like that.
We're going to kind of do that at ACSN, or we already,
exactly.
We're already done it. We already did it.
At this point, yes, we've already done that.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to pick something else, I mean, I do enjoy. I like the cast of this movie pretty much across the board, but they're just in service of a movie that's not very good.
Yeah, and they do give their best. I feel like
they're trying. I mean, I think you can tell. You don't know what it would have been like if they had released the version that they originally shot, because at this point they're kind of probably exhausted.
Right.
of filming this movie because they keep having to do it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't read that bad.
Yeah,
as far as the cast goes.
And then your least favorite part?
Oh, the ending. The ending is terrible.
Okay. I'm gonna go. My favorite part is any scene in the museum.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Least favorite part, the fact that the story just kind of sped through.
Yeah.
Like they don't really get into like if you thought like the main two leads in American Werewolf were boring, like the characters are kind of boring. Like there's not even like an attempt at any sort of backstory or any kind of way to make
nothing.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah. I want to revise my least favorite part.
Okay.
My least favorite part is the name Weinstein in the credits.
Oh God. Yeah, and Harvey Weinstein.
That's a completely different story. Yeah. I don't think he was that involved in this one. I think this movie, its shortcomings are mostly laid at the feet of Bob in this case.
And then what is your rating for this movie?
I got 2.
Okay. I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna go 3.5 because I think the movie.
Wow, goodness gracious, Drew.
Like I just like the feel of the movie. Like the story kind of not that great. The characters are kind of boring. There was a lot more potential to this movie, but like the atmosphere feel Halloweeny enough where like I wouldn't mind watching this movie like at a Halloween party.
Sure, if it's on in the background, why not?
Yeah, because like it has enough like of that Halloween.
It's got fun music. It's got pretty people.
Yeah, it's fairly
it's got a Halloweeny kind of feel. Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, like I would honestly throw this movie on along with like Scooby Doo and Van Helsing. Like they're very kind of similar feeling movies.
Yeah,
I feel like. And so before we wrap this whole video or episode up, out of all 3 of these movies, which one would you rewatch, or could you rewatch the most?
I mean,
most rewatchable.
I mean, it's both for me. I'd have to go with Ginger Snaps. I really enjoy American Werewolf, but Ginger Snaps is just like it really hits my sweet spot because I enjoy the aesthetics of it and I find it very entertaining as well as sort of thought-provoking and artistically well done. So,
sweet,
yeah, it's gonna hit. Yeah.
Yes, I think for me it'd probably be American Werewolf, honestly.
Yeah.
So this is concluded our werewolf movie review for now.
Woo.
I mean, there's a ton of werewolf movies we can talk about in the future.
Yeah.
And I just want to let you guys know that next week's video for the October horror movie review series will be The Exorcist, and that will be up on October 15th. So be looking forward to that. And if you like this episode and you want to see more spooky and weird content, make sure you slash that subscribe button. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter at Horror Sci-Fi and Beyond. And also, don't forget to leave this episode a killer comment and give this episode a King Kong size thumbs up. This has been Drew from Horror Sci-Fi and Beyond. Over and out. Bye.